Ambassador Taiho Kim walked through the long corridor of the Nexus station with a calm face, but his mind was racing. The message had come 30 minutes ago. Emergency session. Closed doors. No records. In his 50 years of service to Earth, he had never received such a summons. The Nexus was the heart of galactic civilization. It floated near a dead star at the center of the galaxy, a massive structure built by species that had traveled between stars when humans were still living in caves. Taiho had walked these halls many times, but today they felt different. Today they felt like a trap. 2 guards stood at the entrance to the council chambers. They were Meridians, tall beings with silver skin and 4 arms. They looked at Taiho with cold eyes and stepped aside without a word. The doors opened and Taiho entered. The chamber was dark except for a single light in the center. 5 figures sat in a half circle, their faces hidden in shadow. Taiho recognized them by their shapes. These were the leaders of the 5 elder races, the species that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. At the center sat Counselor Veth, the oldest and most powerful of them all. Ambassador Kim, Veth said. His voice was soft but carried through the room like thunder. Thank you for coming so quickly. Taiho bowed his head slightly. The Council's request is always my priority. Of course it is. Veth leaned forward and the light caught his face. He looked almost human, but his eyes were completely black and his skin seemed to move like water. We have a matter to discuss. A matter concerning Earth's future in this galaxy. Taiho kept his expression neutral. I am listening. Humanity has been part of our community for 50 years now, Veth said. You have proven yourselves capable of basic space travel. You have established small colonies. You have even contributed to some scientific projects. He paused. But you remain children in a galaxy of adults. We are young, Taiho agreed. But we learn quickly, perhaps too quickly. Veth's black eyes narrowed. Your species has expanded to the outer regions of your solar system. You mine asteroids? You build stations. You gather resources. He stood up slowly. Resources that do not belong to you. Taiho felt his heart beat faster, but his voice remained steady. The Sol System is humanity's home. Everything within it belongs to Earth by right of origin. Rights? Another counselor laughed. It was a harsh sound like metal scraping against stone. You speak of rights? You are guests in this galaxy. Guests do not have rights. They have privileges, and privileges can be taken away. Veth raised one of his 4 hands, and the other counselor fell silent. What my colleague means to say is that the Council has decided to adjust the terms of humanity's membership. The asteroid belt in your outer system contains minerals essential for advanced technology. Technology that humanity is not ready to possess. You want our asteroids, Taiho said flatly. We want what is best for the galaxy. Earth will surrender control of the outer belt to Council management. In exchange, you will be permitted to continue as a junior member. Veth smiled, but there was no warmth in it. This is more than fair. Taiho stood silent for a long moment. Above him, in the observation deck that ringed the chamber, he knew Captain Yuna Park was watching. She commanded the Horizon, the ship that had brought him here. She was also his oldest friend, and if we refuse? Taiho asked. The chamber went completely dark. Then a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed Earth's moon, Luna, floating peacefully in space. But there were objects around it, small devices that pulsed with red light. We placed these gravitational disruptors near your moon 3 years ago, Veth said calmly. If activated, they will destabilize Luna's orbit. Your moon will drift closer to Earth over several months. The tidal forces alone will kill billions. And when Luna finally crashes into your planet, he made a gesture with his hand. Well, there will be nothing left to refuse us. Taiho stared at the hologram. His hands wanted to shake, but he would not let them. This is blackmail. This is reality. Veth sat back down. You have 10 galactic cycles to make your decision. Surrender the belt or watch your world die? The choice is yours. For a moment, Taiho could not speak. He thought of his daughter on Earth, his grandchildren who had never seen another planet. He thought of the billions of people who woke up each morning believing they were safe, believing that the galaxy was a place of law and cooperation. They had all been wrong. "I need to consult with my government," Taiho said finally. His voice was rough, but it did not break. "Of course." Veth waved his hand dismissively. 10 cycles. Not a moment more. Taiho turned and walked out of the chamber. His steps were measured, his back straight. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him afraid. The doors closed behind him, and he was alone in the corridor. His communicator buzzed. It was Yuna. "I saw everything," she said. Her voice was tight with controlled anger. "What do we do?" "Get me a secure channel to Admiral Han," Taiho replied. "Highest encryption." "No records. Done. What's the message?" Taiho walked toward the docking bay where the horizon waited. Through the windows he could see council ships patrolling the station, their weapons gleaming in the starlight. They thought humanity was helpless. They thought they had won. They were wrong. "The message is simple," Taiho said. "They have declared war. They just don't know it yet." 2 hours later, the horizon jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the Nexus behind. In his quarters, Taiho stood before a hologram of Earth. The blue planet turned slowly, peaceful, and beautiful. His home. He began composing a message to President Yoonji Cho. He chose his words carefully because these words would change everything. The council believed humanity was weak because they were young. They believed humans would surrender because they had no choice. But the council did not understand humans. They did not know that humanity had survived ice ages and plagues, wars, and disasters. They did not know that humans were most dangerous when they had everything to lose. Taiho finished his message and sent it through the encrypted channel. Then he sat down and waited. Somewhere across the galaxy, Admiral Jasuhan would be reading his words. Somewhere, plans that had been made in secret would begin to move. The council had given them 10 cycles. Humanity would not need that long. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, President Yoonji Cho sat at the head of a long table. Around her were the most powerful people on Earth, generals, scientists, intelligence directors, and fleet commanders. They had all read Ambassador Kim's message. Now they waited for her to speak. "So," Yoonji said quietly, "they want to destroy our world." No one answered. There was nothing to say. Director Min-ho Lee, head of Earth's Intelligence Division, broke the silence. "Madam President, if I may." "Speak." Min-ho stood up. He was a thin man with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "We always knew this day would come. The Council has never seen humanity as equals. They tolerate us because we are useful, but they have always planned to control us when we became too strong. And now they make their move," Admiral Jasuhan said. She was a broad woman with short black hair and a voice like iron. "They think we're helpless. Are we?" Yoonji asked. The room went quiet again. Then Min-ho smiled. It was a cold smile, the smile of a man who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. "No, Madam President. We are not." He pressed a button on the table, and a hologram appeared. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of blinking dots scattered across council space. "For the past 40 years, we have placed operatives in every major council system," Min-ho explained. "They work as traders, mechanics, translators, servants. The council ignores them because they think humans are beneath notice." He zoomed in on the map. "These operatives have mapped every military base, every communication hub, every secret the elder races thought was buried. We know where their ships are. We know where their leaders sleep. We know things about them that they don't know about themselves." Admiral Han nodded slowly. "Good intelligence. But intelligence alone won't stop those devices around Luna." "No," Min-ho agreed. "For that, we need Lieutenant Commander Hyok Kong." A young officer stood up at the far end of the table. Hyok was compact and muscular, with a scar running down his left cheek. He had spent 15 years in Earth's Special Operations Forces. "Madam President," Hyok said, "my team can reach Luna within 6 hours using stealth shuttles. The Council's disruptors are unguarded because they don't think we know about them. We can disable all devices and be gone before anyone notices. And if you're detected? Unji asked. We won't be. Yunji studied him for a moment, then nodded. Do it, Hayok saluted and left the room. As the door closed behind him, Dr. Sujin Beek stood up. She was the chief scientist of Project Ember, a program so secret that even most of Earth's leaders didn't know it existed. Madam President, Sujin said, removing the threat to Luna is only the first step. If we simply defend ourselves, the Council will find another way to attack. We need to strike back, and we need to do it in a way they never expect. She brought up another hologram. This one showed weapons systems, communication networks, and economic charts. Project Ember has been developing countermeasures for 30 years, Sujin continued. We have quantum-locked missiles that cannot be detected or intercepted by any known technology. We have a virus that can shut down the entire Council communication network with one signal. And we have detailed information on every financial transaction, every corrupt deal, every hidden account in Council space. You're talking about economic warfare, Yunji said. I'm talking about showing them that humanity has been playing a different game all along. Sujin's eyes were bright. They think we're children. Let's show them what children can do when they're angry. President Cho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the mountains rose white and silent under the stars. Somewhere up there, Luna hung in the sky, waiting to be saved or destroyed. The Council gave us 10 cycles, she said. They expect us to spend that time begging and negotiating, trying to find a way to change their minds. That's what a weak species would do. She turned to face the room. We are not weak. She returned to the table and placed her hands flat on its surface. Director Lee, activate our intelligence networks. I want every secret the Council has ever kept ready to be exposed. Admiral Han, move our fleet into position, but keep them hidden. I want the Council to think we're paralyzed with fear until the moment we're ready to strike. And the economic attack? Minho asked. Yunji smiled grimly. Begin immediately. Every human company in Council space starts pulling out tonight. Call in every debt. Expose every corrupt official. By tomorrow morning, I want the galactic markets in chaos. The officers around the table began to move. They had planned for this day for decades. Now it was finally here, 6 hours later. Lieutenant Commander Hayok Kong floated in the shadow of Luna. His team of 12 operators moved in complete silence, their black suits invisible against the darkness of space. Ahead of them, the Council's gravitational disruptors pulsed with faint red light. The devices were scattered around the moon in a careful pattern. If activated, they would work together to push Luna out of its orbit. It was elegant engineering designed for mass murder. Hayok gave the signal and his team spread out. Each operator approached a device and began the careful work of disabling it. There were no guards, no sensors, no defenses. The Council was so confident in human weakness that they hadn't bothered to protect their weapon. One by one, the red lights went dark. All devices disabled, Hayok reported through his encrypted channel. Luna is safe. On Earth, President Cho received the message and closed her eyes for a moment. The immediate threat was over. Now the real work could begin. Across Council space, the attack started. Human corporations that had operated in alien systems for decades suddenly withdrew all their services. Ships stopped delivering goods. Banks called in loans. Contracts were canceled without warning. And then the secrets began to spill on a dozen worlds. News networks received anonymous packages containing evidence of Council corruption. Bribes, assassinations, illegal experiments on primitive species. The elder races had committed crimes for thousands of years. Believing no one would ever hold them accountable, they were wrong on the Nexus station. Counselor Veth watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy. Markets were crashing. His allies were demanding explanations. Entire systems were threatening to leave the Council. For the first time in his long life, Veth felt something cold in his chest. It was doubt. It was fear. The humans had not begged. They had not negotiated. They had not done anything he expected, and that terrified him more than anything else. The council chamber was full for the first time in centuries. Representatives from every member species had come to the Nexus, demanding answers. The markets were still falling. Communication systems were failing across multiple sectors. Rumors of corruption and conspiracy spread like fire. Councillor Veth stood at the center of the chamber, trying to project calm, but inside he was furious. His operatives had confirmed that the gravitational disruptors around Luna were dead. The humans had found them and disabled them without triggering a single alarm. That should have been impossible. The doors to the chamber opened, and Ambassador Taiho Kim walked in. Veth felt his jaw tighten. The human should have been broken by now. He should have come crawling, begging for mercy. Instead, Taiho walked with his head high and his eyes clear. And he was not alone. Behind him came representatives from 17 different species. Some were large, some were small. Some had fur, some had scales, some had skin like polished stone. But they all walked together, and they all stood behind the human ambassador. What is the meaning of this? Veth demanded. Teho stopped in the center of the chamber and looked up at the council. These are our allies, he said simply. They stand with humanity today because they are tired of living under your rule. A murmur went through the assembly. Some counselors looked confused. Others looked afraid. Allies? Veth laughed, but the sound was hollow. These are minor species. They have no power. They have truth, Taiho replied. He raised his hand and a hologram appeared above him. It showed the closed session from 3 days ago, the session where Veth had delivered his ultimatum. The recording was perfect. Every word, every threat, every moment of blackmail was captured clearly. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted and pointed. Some demanded explanations. Others demanded Veth's arrest. The careful order of council politics collapsed into chaos. This is a trick, Veth shouted over the noise. Human technology, human lies, then explain this. Taiho changed the hologram. Now it showed documents, thousands of them. Bank records, military orders, private communications. Evidence of council crimes going back centuries. We are broadcasting this to every world in the galaxy right now. By the time this session ends, everyone will know what you have done. In a small ship far from the Nexus, journalist Dai Yun watched her screens light up. She had been an independent reporter for 20 years, always searching for stories that the powerful wanted hidden. Now the biggest story in galactic history was flowing through her equipment. She began broadcasting immediately. Her signal went out to every corner of known space, carrying the truth about the Council's corruption and their attempt to destroy Earth within minutes. Billions of beings were watching. Back on the Nexus, Veth tried to regain control. This changes nothing, he declared. The Council's military will crush any resistance. Humanity has no fleet that can match ours. As if on cue, his communication device buzzed. He looked at it and went very still. Counselor? One of his aides asked. What is it? Veth did not answer. He simply raised his hand and projected the message for everyone to see. It was a tactical map of Council space. And scattered across that map, at every strategic point, every major trade route, every critical system were human ships. Captain Unipark's fleet had appeared from nowhere. 200 vessels armed and ready, positioned perfectly to strike at the heart of Council power. They were not attacking. They were just waiting. And that was somehow worse. How? Veth whispered. Teho smiled slightly. We have been preparing for this day for a very long time. In the Council's military command center, officers scrambled to respond. But their systems were failing. Navigation computers showed incorrect coordinates. Weapons refused to lock on targets. Communications dissolved into static and noise. General Sung Wuru's voice came through on a clear channel that cut through the interference. He was the commander of Earth's ground forces, and his message was directed at every military officer in Council space. This is General Ru of the United Earth Forces. Your systems are compromised. Your fleet is surrounded. Any attempt to attack human vessels will result in the immediate Release of your military secrets to every enemy you have ever made. The Outer Rim pirates alone would tear you apart within a week. He paused to let that sink in. We do not want war. We want justice. Stand down, and you will not be harmed. The Council's military commanders looked at each other. They had spent their careers believing they were invincible. Now they were helpless, and they knew it. On the Nexus, Counselor Veth watched his power crumble. His allies were distancing themselves. His fleets were frozen. His secrets were spreading across the galaxy like a plague. You have made a terrible mistake, he said to Taiho. His voice shook with barely controlled rage. You think this is victory? This is the beginning of the end for your species. The elder races will never accept human dominance. They will destroy you. We don't want dominance, Taiho replied calmly. We want equality. We want a galaxy where every species has a voice, not just the ones who were born first. He looked around the chamber at the hundreds of representatives watching him. We want what everyone here wants. We want freedom. His words hung in the air. And slowly, one by one, representatives from dozens of species began to stand. They stood with humanity. They stood against the Council. Veth looked at them with disgust. Traitors, he spat. All of you. No, said a representative from a species that had been council members for 5,000 years. We are finally awake. The session ended in chaos. But it was a different kind of chaos than before. It was the chaos of change, of old structures breaking apart to make room for something new. That night, Captain Una Park stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked at the stars. Her fleet had not fired a single shot. They had not needed to. Humanity had won this battle with information, with preparation, with patience, but she knew it was not over. Veth and his supporters would fight back. They would try to regain control. The war for the galaxy's future had only just begun. Her communication panel lit up. It was Ambassador Kim. Nice work today, Taiho said. He looked tired but satisfied. We got lucky, Una replied. They underestimated us. That wasn't luck. That was strategy. Taiho smiled slightly. They never thought we could beat them. They never imagined we had been planning this for decades. So what happens now? Now we finish what we started. His smile faded. Now we show them that humanity doesn't just win wars. We build something better from the ashes. Una nodded slowly. She looked out at her fleet, at the ships that had traveled across the galaxy to stand against the most powerful civilization in history. They were far from home and surrounded by enemies. But they were not afraid because they were human, and humans never gave up. President Onji Cho stood before a camera in a small room on Earth. There was no grand stage, no dramatic lighting, just a plain background and a single chair. She had chosen this setting carefully. She did not want to look like a conqueror. She wanted to look like what she was, a leader speaking the truth. The signal would reach every world in the galaxy. Billions of beings would hear her words. The weight of that responsibility pressed on her shoulders. But her voice was steady when she began. My name is Yunji Cho. I am the President of United Earth. I am speaking to you today because my species has been threatened with extinction, and we have chosen to fight back. She paused. But I did not come here to threaten you. I came to tell you who we are. She took a breath. Humanity is young. By galactic standards, we are children. We have only traveled between stars for a few centuries. We have only been part of the Council for 50 years. Many of you have never met a human. Many of you have been told that we are primitive and dangerous. She leaned forward slightly. We are not primitive. And yes, we can be dangerous, but not in the way you think. Humans are dangerous because we never give up. We are dangerous because we learn from our mistakes. We are dangerous because we have looked into the darkness of our own hearts and we have chosen to be better. She smiled sadly. We have fought terrible wars against each other. We have committed acts of cruelty that shame us still. But we have also created art and music and science. We have fed the hungry and healed the sick. We have reached for the stars because we believed there was something better waiting for us. When the Council threatened to destroy our world, they expected us to surrender. They thought fear would make us weak. But fear does not make humans weak. Fear makes us strong. It makes us creative. It makes us determined to survive. We did not build weapons because we wanted to conquer. We built them because we knew that one day someone would try to take everything from us. And we were right, she stood up. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to replace one set of tyrants with another. We want a galaxy where every species has a voice. We want a galaxy where the strong protect the weak instead of crushing them. We want justice and we want peace. To Counselor Veth and those who stand with him, your time is over. You can accept change or you can be swept away by it. The choice is yours. To everyone else, we offer our hand in friendship. Help us build something better. Help us create a future worth living in. She sat back down. That is all I have to say. Thank you for listening. The transmission ended. Yunji closed her eyes for a moment. She had said what needed to be said. Now she could only wait to see how the galaxy would respond on the Nexus station. Counselor Veth called an emergency meeting of his remaining allies. There were fewer of them now. Many had already defected to the human side. Others were hiding, waiting to see which way the wind would blow. We must strike now, Veth insisted. Destroy the human fleet before they can consolidate their position. With what? Asked one of his generals. Our systems are compromised. Half our ships can't navigate. The other half can't fire their weapons. Then fix them. We're trying. The human virus is unlike anything we've ever seen. Every time we remove it from one system, it appears in 3 more. Veth slammed his hand on the table. This is unacceptable. We are the elder races. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will not be defeated by these insects. But perhaps, said a quiet voice, we should consider negotiation. Veth turned slowly to face the speaker. It was Counselor Dren, a Meridian who had served on the Council for 2 centuries. He was old even by their standards, and he had always been cautious. Negotiation? Veth repeated the word like it was poison. The humans have already won the public battle, Dren said. Every world in the galaxy has seen the evidence of our crimes. If we continue to fight, we will only make things worse. But if we negotiate, if we accept some reforms, we might preserve some of our power. You would have us surrender? I would have us survive. Dren looked at the other counselors. The galaxy is changing. We can change with it, or we can be destroyed. I prefer to live. Veth stared at him with contempt, but he could see the other counselors nodding. They were afraid. They were looking for a way out. He had lost them. That night, several council members attempted to remove Veth from power. They planned to arrest him and offer him to the humans as a sacrifice, hoping it would buy them mercy. But Veth had spies everywhere, and he escaped before they could take him. For 3 days, chaos ruled council space. Factions fought each other in the corridors of the Nexus. Ships exchanged fire in orbit around a dozen worlds. The great civilization of the elder races tore itself apart while humans watched and waited. Admiral Jisuhan activated Earth's final defense system, a network of platforms that surrounded the solar system like an iron shell. They called it the Iron Veil. Any ship that approached Earth without permission would be destroyed instantly. The message was clear. Humanity's home was untouchable. Finally, Ambassador Taiho Kim met with Counselor Dren in a private room on the Nexus. They sat across from each other with a small table between them. There were no guards, no weapons, no recordings. Just 2 tired old beings trying to find a way forward. You have won, Dren said simply. What do you want? I already told you. We want equality. We want democracy. We want a galaxy where power is not determined by age or strength, but by the consent of the governed. Dren shook his head slowly. You ask for everything. We ask for what should have always been. Taiho leaned forward. Your civilization is 10,000 years old. In all that time, you have never changed. You have never grown. You have only accumulated power and used it to control others. That path leads to stagnation and death. And your path leads where? We don't know, Taiho admitted. That's the point. We want to find out together. We want a galaxy that can still surprise us, that can still discover new things. We want to build instead of just rule. Dren was silent for a long moment. If we agree to your terms, what happens to us? The elder races? You join us. As equals. No more, no less. Taiho sat back. You have knowledge and experience that we need. We have energy and ideas that you have forgotten. Together, we might create something worth preserving. And if we refuse, then you will fall? Not because we will destroy you, but because the galaxy has already moved on. The other species have seen what is possible. They will never go back to being your servants. Dren looked at the human for a long time. He was old, older than most beings in the galaxy, and he had seen many things. But he had never seen anything quite like this. A species so young, so brash, so foolish and brave that they would challenge the entire galactic order simply because they believed they were right. It was terrifying. And it was magnificent. I will speak to the others, Dren said finally. I make no promises, but I will speak to them. Taiho nodded. That's all I ask. They stood and shook hands in the human way. It was a strange gesture to Dren, pressing skin against skin with a stranger. But he thought he understood it now. It was a gesture of trust. Perhaps, he thought, the humans had something to teach them after all. 6 months had passed since the confrontation at the Nexus. The galaxy had changed more in that time than in the previous 1,000 years. Ambassador Taiho Kim stood at a podium in a great hall on a station that had once been the seat of council power. But the council was gone now. In its place stood the Galactic Assembly, a new government where every species had an equal voice. And by the choice of its members, Taiho was its first chairman. This assembly is not an ending, he said to the representatives gathered before him. It is a beginning. We have torn down the old structures, but building new ones will be harder. We will make mistakes. We will disagree. We will sometimes want to give up. He paused. But we will keep going. Because that is what free people do. The assembly hall was filled with beings from hundreds of worlds. They came in every shape and size and color. They spoke different languages and followed different customs. But today they were all part of something larger than themselves. Today they were citizens of a new galaxy. Far from the assembly, Councillor Veth stood trial for his crimes. He was not the only one. Dozens of former council leaders faced justice for centuries of corruption and abuse. Some tried to defend themselves by claiming they had done what was necessary to maintain order. Others simply refused to speak. Humanity had argued for fair trials and proportional punishments. Some in the galaxy wanted executions, wanted revenge for generations of suffering. But Taiho and President Shou had insisted on a different path. If we become what they were, Yunji had said, then we have already lost. So the guilty were sentenced to service, not death. They would spend the rest of their lives helping to rebuild what they had destroyed. It was not the ending many wanted, but it was the ending that might lead to real peace. Captain Yuna Park no longer commanded a war fleet. Now she led an exploration squadron, a collection of ships from a dozen species traveling together into the unknown. They had passed beyond the borders of council space and were heading for regions of the galaxy that no one had ever explored. She stood on her bridge and watched the stars stream past. Her crew was a mix of humans and aliens, all working together, all learning from each other. It was strange and difficult and sometimes frustrating, but it was also wonderful. Captain, her navigator called out, we're detecting an unusual signal ahead. It might be artificial. Yuna leaned forward. Source? Unknown. It doesn't match any technology in our database. She smiled. This was why they were out here. This was what exploration meant. Change course to investigate. Let's see what we've found. The fleet turned toward the signal, toward the mystery, toward the future, back in council space. Dr. Sujin Beek led a team of scientists from multiple species in a massive technology-sharing initiative. The weapons she had created for Project Ember were locked away now, hopefully never to be used. Instead, Her knowledge was being applied to medicine and agriculture and energy production. The same principles that powered our missiles can power a city, she explained to a group of alien engineers. The same code that crashed their networks can optimize food distribution for 1 billion people. It's all about how you choose to use it. The engineers looked at her with a mix of respect and uncertainty. They had been taught to fear human technology. Now they were learning that technology was not good or evil. Only the beings who used it could be those things. On Earth, the first integrated Galactic Academy opened its doors. Students from dozens of species came to learn together, to train together, to build friendships that would last a lifetime. They studied science and history and art. They played games and shared meals and argued about philosophy late into the night. Among them was a young cadet named Jiwoo Shin. She was 18 years old, born on Earth, and she had never met an alien before coming to the academy. Now she shared a room with a being made of living crystal and spent most of her free time with a furry creature from a planet with 3 suns. One day, a reporter from a galactic news network came to the academy to do a story. She interviewed several students, asking them about their experiences. When she got to Jiwoo, she asked, "What does it mean to be human?" Jiwoo thought for a moment. She thought about Ambassador Kim and President Cho, about Captain Park and Dr. Beak, about all the people who had risked everything so that she could stand here today. "It means we remember what it's like to be underestimated," she said, "and we try to make sure no one else has to feel that way." The reporter thanked her and moved on. But Jiwoo kept thinking about the question. What did it mean to be human? She wasn't sure she had given the right answer. Maybe there wasn't a right answer. Maybe being human just meant you kept asking questions and kept trying to be better than you were yesterday. That seemed like enough. In his office on the assembly station, Tai-ho stood at a viewport and watched ships from 100 worlds pass by. Trade ships and passenger ships and research vessels. Ships that 6 months ago might have been shooting at each other. Now they shared the same space, followed the same rules, worked toward the same goals. He heard footsteps behind him and turned. A Meridian stood in the doorway. It was Counselor Dren, who had chosen to remain and serve in the new government rather than retire with the other elders. "Chairman Kim," Dren said. "May I speak with you?" "Of course." Tai-ho gestured to a chair. Dren sat down slowly. He was quiet for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. Then he said, "You could have destroyed us. You had the weapons, the intelligence, the support. You could have wiped out the elder races and ruled the galaxy yourselves. Why didn't you?" Tai-ho looked at him. It was a fair question. He had asked it of himself many times during the long months of planning and fighting. "Because then we would have become you," he said simply. "We would have repeated your mistakes. We would have built an empire on fear and called it peace. And eventually, someone would have risen up against us, just as we rose up against you." He shook his head. "We didn't want to be masters. We wanted to be partners." Dren considered this. It is a strange philosophy. It's a human philosophy. We have learned that power is not the same as strength. Real strength is building something that lasts, something that makes life better for everyone, not just those at the top. Do you think you can really do that? Create a galaxy of equals? I think we can try. Tai-ho smiled slightly. And if we fail, at least we will have failed at something worth attempting. Dren nodded slowly. He still did not fully understand these humans, but he was beginning to respect them. They had a kind of courage that the elder races had lost long ago, a willingness to risk everything for an idea. Perhaps that was what it meant to be young. Perhaps that was what the galaxy had been missing. He stood up. "Thank you for your time, Chairman." "Thank you for staying," Tai-ho replied. "We need your experience. We need your wisdom. We need to learn from your mistakes so we don't repeat them." Dren paused at the door. "And if we make new mistakes? Then we'll learn from those too." The Meridian left. Tai-ho turned back to the viewport and watched the ships go by. Somewhere out there, Yuno was exploring the unknown. Somewhere, Sujin was sharing humanity's science with the galaxy. Somewhere, young people like Ji-woo were learning to see aliens as friends instead of strangers. The galaxy was changing. It was difficult and messy and uncertain. But it was also full of hope. That was what humanity had given the galaxy. Not conquest, not domination, not fear. Hope. Teho smiled. It wasn't a bad legacy for a species that everyone had underestimated. He turned away from the window and went back to work. There was still so much to do. But for the first time in his long career, he was looking forward to it. The new dawn had come. And humanity would be there to meet it.